Hello, and welcome to Let My People Eat, a podcast that provides satisfying talk about kosher nutrition. Here we clear through the clutter of nutrition speak, arm you with the clarity and confidence to eat, feel, and be your healthiest every day. I am Jill Scharfman, a board-certified holistic nutritionist living in Los Angeles.
And I'm Dr. Andrea Moskowitz, a neuroscientist and psychiatrist in Los Angeles. I use my training and experience to integrate positive lifestyle changes into my patients' lives.
Hey, Andrea.
Hey, Jill. How's it going?
It's going well. So I'm excited because right now we're going to be doing part 2 of our, I'm going to call it our Food and Mood episode. Part 1 we taped with Bari Mitzmann on her Women of Valor podcast,
right,
where you did a lot of explaining about what anxiety is. And now we're going to talk about a little bit about what you can do to help with your anxiety, we hope. So let me introduce to our audience, Bari Mitzmann is a content creator whose goal is to empower women and normalize struggle. She uses her Instagram platform at Bariana, her blog Bariana.com, and her podcast Women of Valor to discuss and normalize mental illness and other seemingly taboo topics in the Jewish community. She holds a BA in psychology, a master's in education, and is a wife and mother of 2 living in Las Vegas. Hey, Bari.
Hey, Bari.
Hey, it's so nice to be speaking to you guys again. Long time no speak.
This is fun. Yeah. So, again, last week we talked a lot to Andrea. We talked to you about, anxiety in general. And now we'd like to get into the nitty gritty of things that we can do to repair your biochemistry, to balance your neurotransmitters, which are the chemical messengers that transmit a message, and how to nourish your body so you feel calm. Now, everybody is biologically unique. So we have to always keep that in mind, that what works for one person may not work for someone else. And we have to get to the root cause of the anxiety. And it's not always that easy. So, Andrea, before we get into some of the holistic methods of doing that, what happens when a patient comes to you that they have anxiety? You've established that anxiety exists. What are some of the things that you recommend to them? Okay.
So one of the first things I usually recommend would be therapy. And one of the mainstays in treatment with anxiety is cognitive behavioral therapy, and there's several different types of it. I'm not going to go into that. And basically what cognitive behavioral therapy looks at is the link between what you're experiencing and your emotions is often mediated by thoughts, and some of those thoughts are not the most productive, And then there's other variations of different kinds of therapy. For someone who has more post-traumatic stress disorder, there's other kinds of trauma related therapies, and there's certain cognitive therapies for trauma, like trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. So there's just different variations. So that's almost always part of their treatment plan. The other thing can be certain kinds of medications. I tend not to. I work mostly with kids and teens, but even when I worked with adults, I tend to, except for certain circumstances, not recommend. There's a certain class of medication called benzodiazepines, which are like, Valium, Xanax, are in that class. And I tend, except for I said certain exceptions, not use those because they can be very addictive. And also when they're not that long lasting, even the longer lasting ones. So when they wear off, your anxiety can come back, and it can actually be worse when it comes back. So the medications I will use when I do use medication are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So that includes things like Prozac, sertraline, or Zoloft, Paxil. There's a bunch of different ones. And when I would use those is a couple of situations. Is one, if the person's anxiety is so bad or so strong that they can't even start to do the therapy work, or they've become like locked in their house almost, or kids like they can't get to school because of it. So it's really impacting their every little thing in their life. Or they have also a coexisting depression, which could have been caused by the anxiety, but then gets in the way of people feeling like they're even able or competent enough to be able to do things to help themselves.
Right.
So, and then, every once in a while, there are people who are just like, you know what, I hear all that about therapy and stuff. I don't have the time right now to do it. I don't want to do it. Just give me a pill.
Right.
So
Bari, you're a fan of therapy. You post about it. Yeah. So
yes.
What's been your experience?
So my experience in the past is that I didn't realize how subpar some of my therapists were until years later. And something I noticed is that you get out of therapy what you desire to get out of it. For many years, my desire for therapy was just to talk things out that happened during my day, during my week. And that has transformed. I actually sat down with my therapist. I switched therapists a few months ago, and I decided, I'm trying to do meditation. I have a meditation coach. I am working on my nutrition. I am working on being more active. I'm spending a lot of time trying to help myself. So I sat down on the couch and I looked at my therapist and I'm like, what are you going to do for me? Are you just wasting my time? Are you taking my money? And just not helping me? Like, is this going to help me? And he looked at me and he's like, well, what do you want to get out of it? And I was like, well, that's a great question. Something that some of my therapists had never asked before. And we came to the conclusion that for myself, though, talking about somebody's week or trying to just have that person to help hash things out, I needed someone who was going to help me delve into very specific sort of issues that are deep-rooted, things that I haven't yet confronted or made headway in dealing with. And that has been, extremely helpful for me. And on the note of medication, Andrea, I've been, there have been points where I was on medication, long-term, short-term, peripartum depression was something that I am 2 for 2 with my 2 beautiful children. Just around 7 months, boom, there you go. Like textbook symptoms, like you want to Google it? There I was. And then, some stronger medication, some not taking medication at all. One thing I did want to say, there have been times where, therapy and medication have gone really well hand in hand. There were times where I thought that, medication just took the edge off. And there are times where I believed that, the therapy was doing the work that I needed and that I developed some coping mechanisms. Andrea, do you have patients who are fearful of getting on medication because of side effects, because of withdrawal?
Oh, yes. Yeah, 100%. More side effects than withdrawal. But yes, for sure. And we talk about that and we, go through that. I also almost never tell somebody you have to go on medication. We look for other ways or other things we can do instead. Sometimes we try a lot of other interventions and then they're kind of like, you know what? Let me just try the medication. So it's very personal. It's very individual. And, these medications the studies are done on an average, they average the results. So some people have great results. Some people have really bad results. Some people have middle of the road results.
But they are very hard to get off of.
It depends not necessarily. No? It just depends on the medication.
Okay.
And depends probably on the person and their biochemistry. So, for example, something like Prozac, it's extremely long acting and your body makes a metabolite of it that's also active. So actually to go off Prozac, you just stop it and it takes actually weeks to get out of your body and it does it gradually. So like that's, versus something like Paxil, which now has a sustained release form, but Paxil was always like more difficult to get off of, or Prestige. Now it's more difficult to get off of it because they're shorter acting.
Right.
So, and there's only so low that the dosing goes. So that gets trickier. A lot of it depends on the pharmacological properties of the medication.
Right. So, but important to know, don't ever stop the medication cold turkey without first talking to a qualified professional.
Exactly. Even though I said
I know that from experience. Don't do that.
Right.
I did it.
Don't do that.
It was a bad decision.
It's not pretty.
No, and certain of them you can go into like a withdrawal, and it's very uncomfortable. You feel like you have the flu,
or you feel your anxiety symptoms reoccur, and you think, oh, it's because you stopped taking the medication. But a lot of times, it's with the withdrawal from the medications that are causing similar symptoms to the anxiety.
Sometimes, yeah.
I actually had these weird brain shocks.
Oh yeah,
brain shocks.
Yeah.
It was like, wait a second, like, why did I just feel like my head was just electrocuted?
Yeah.
Like, that was a bad decision. So the next time, we, weaned me onto medication, we also discussed, like, when it was the time to wean off.
Sure.
How to do so in a fashion that my brain didn't feel like, an electricity pole.
Right. But that is very common.
Right.
Okay. So so Andrea explained her approach. I'm going to explain my approach as a holistic nutritionist. Andrea may not agree with me on everything, but...
Yeah.
Which I love about this show.
Yeah,
I love it.
But remember that I also do ask people about diet. And I also get blood studies and stuff like that. So I'm not completely not with you.
So of course, the first thing I'm going to start with is that we always encourage people to eat a whole quality food diet. That's always the base point, because no matter what, you're going to feel better if you're not eating junk food. And there are studies that prove that it does help with anti-anxiety. One of the biggest issues that we see is that gluten has been linked to mood issues because it causes inflammation in the body if you can't tolerate it, whether or not you have sensitivities or obviously celiac, you want to stay away from gluten. But the first thing that we would recommend is try taking gluten out of your diet for a couple of weeks and see how you feel. Secondly, we'd say, let's look at dairy. Some people tolerate dairy very well. Other people don't. And because it causes damage to the digestive system, if they can't tolerate it, then maybe that's another thing that we should remove. And of course, processed foods, sugar, all the things that Andrew and I talk about in every one of our podcasts. More veggies, more fruits, more good quality protein. Studies indicate that depression is lower in countries like we talked about, the blue zones, where seafood consumption is high.
Right.
Also including non-starchy vegetables, which have calcium, magnesium, potassium, zinc, B vitamins, all those good things that nourish your brain, nourish your body. So we want to start with the basis of the whole foods diet. Organic is always my first preference, but if you can't get organic, please do not shun fruits and vegetables just because of that. Right. Fermented foods like yogurt support gut health, which we call the gut the second brain. So it's important our gut is healthy in order to help with anxiety. You want to eat good fats because those studies show less anxiety and a better overall mood. So including coconut oil, olive oil, flax seeds in your diet. This is a big one. Low blood sugar. Bari, do you suffer from low blood sugar if you don't eat? Do you get anxious, nervous?
I have definitely had episodes of that. And I do know that when I'm hangry, that'll happen. The lightheadedness, the irritability, getting hot, getting nauseous. And I'm just like, where's the food? Where are the nuts? Yeah. Where are the things? I always carry some sort of thing with fat. Right. Kind of like, Trader Joe's has those, prepackaged like trail mixes or just, roasted cashews. I can't do the raw. I wish I can't. And just, pop those to kind of help with that. But I do feel that when that happens, I get very irritable. Right.
Because it feels like anxiety. I mean, low blood sugar can mimic anxiety. So it's important that somebody who does feel anxious doesn't let themselves get to that point where their blood sugar drops. Eating breakfast is a good idea when they wake up if they can tolerate eating breakfast. Also, I know some people who are anxious wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes in a panic, but typically that happens. People are anxious, people who aren't anxious because their blood sugar drops in the middle of the night. So sometimes having a bedtime snack right before you go to sleep, protein, fat, like that trail mix little thing, can help people stay through the night because it will keep their blood sugar at a better level. So I would encourage that as well. Hydrating, especially, has been so hot the last few days. Using coconut water, try kombucha, adding herbs and spices to your food. Ginger is very calming. lavender, those types of things. Sea vegetables are high in iodine, iron, and magnesium. So those can be very helpful. I sprinkle some dulce flakes on my breakfast every morning. And caffeine. Bari, can you drink coffee, caffeine? Is that something you could tolerate?
I recently found out that I can barely even tolerate decaf.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That is very common.
So sad.
Yeah.
I want to be one of those basic moms that's I haven't had my coffee yet. And then I have a decaf and I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
It's
my energy's gone. Right. I feel dehydrated.
Right.
I feel moody. I'm not hungry anymore. And it just throws off the entire day.
Yeah. People with anxiety or panic disorders tend to be more sensitive to caffeine. And, like you were saying, there are a lot of people who are walking around drinking caffeine all day and probably don't realize how it's affecting their moods. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Right. And also you should know, just because it says decaf doesn't mean there's zero caffeine. There is there is some caffeine in there. The other thing people should be, which hopefully they know to be watchful of, are some of these energy drinks like Rockstar and Monster. They have a huge amount of caffeine.
Yeah. They're actually almost dangerous.
Yeah.
So finally, just talking about the whole foods to wrap up that conversation. What I would always recommend is that somebody keeps a food log and they track their mood, because you almost have to be a little bit like a detective to kind of figure out, what's going on. Oh, I'm hangry, and that's what's causing me to feel anxious right now. Or I ate this and it doesn't make me feel good. So I always recommend somebody keep a food log for 3 days, be very honest with yourself, and see if there's anything that you can identify might be causing a problem. There's something else out there called amino acid therapy. Julia Moore and Trudy Scott are two of the pioneers. And what they are talking about is balancing your brain chemistry through neurotransmitter deficiencies and raising their levels through amino acids. So what are amino acids? Proteins are made up of amino acids. Right. And they need vitamin and mineral cofactors to go ahead and make the neurotransmitters, which is what are sending your messages in the brain. So, it's the good thing is if you start taking amino acids, and again, you need to do this with somebody who's very well educated in this process, you can get immediate feedback with supplementation. You can notice the difference fairly soon. So that's a very big advantage of them. So, Bari, I have a questionnaire for you, because it might help identify if you are specifically deficient in this particular amino acid. It's actually also a neurotransmitter. So here are the questions. It is a checkoff, so you could just say yes or no. Do you have anxiety and feel overwhelmed or stressed?
Yes.
Do you have panic attacks?
Yes.
Are you unable to relax or loosen up?
Yes, but I put in parentheses most of the time, but not all the time.
Okay. Do you have stiff or tense muscles?
Yes.
Do you feel stressed and burned out?
Yes.
Do you crave carbs, alcohol, drugs to relax and calm you?
No.
No. Okay. So,
yay, one no.
Yeah, okay. So it says if you checked off 3 or more, the next section may help you improve these symptoms. So what is this questionnaire talking about? It seems to indicate that you're low in GABA. And like I said, GABA is an amino acid and a neurotransmitter. And low levels of this are associated with anxiety. You can supplement it sublingually or orally if, that's something that somebody wants to go ahead and do. Yoga also increases GABA. So for you, I would say, according to that questionnaire, is something that you may want to look into, that you might be low in this.
Yeah. I just want to say something, though.
Sure.
Okay. So here's where we're going to not agree. Actually, almost every question on there just has to do with anxiety. Mm-hmm. So that's just an anxiety questionnaire. And yes, GABA is linked to anxiety. No question about it. And actually what's interesting is the receptor system for GABA also includes the receptors for why alcohol affects us, mm-hmm. and for the benzodiazepines that we talk, acted, and some other things act at those receptor sites. So yeah. So I don't know if that
questionnaire is the best.
It's specific for anxiety, and yes, anxiety is associated with issues in the GABA system, but I don't think like that questionnaire really picks up GABA.
Right.
Because
but it's a good starting point that if you do say yes, maybe to 3 or more of those questions, that maybe you should talk to somebody and see if this, because it's not a very invasive process. You can get an immediate feedback if it works for you. Yeah. But yeah, I get it. I feel like I was reading that questionnaire and I could have said yes for sure to 3 of those questions, as most people know.
I feel like I should have just like faxed you guys my blood work. Yeah. I mean, like that's one of the points that I like. I mean, in part 1, we discussed that there are like so many factors that also, lead into what can cause, anxiety. And I asked like, what comes first? Is it, a behavior? Is it an illness? Or is it just already there and whatever? And the answer was just like, yes. Like there's no like one size fits all. And I do have a history of, chronic illness and, it's interesting that there are so many parts that play a role in this. And that's why I appreciate, Andrea, that you look at it as a whole and don't just be like, oh, you're experiencing this. Okay, take this. Have a nice day, which unfortunately has been my experience with some psychiatrists.
Sorry.
So I appreciate you trying to find the root cause and looking at a whole person rather than, just a small facet.
Right. The other thing I want to say about amino acid therapy, and it's is in the caveat, like, do not try this at home by yourself.
Right.
Because the thing is, the amino acids are in balance. So, for example, we're going to get to one later on, tryptophan, which is the precursor for serotonin. But if you overload your system with tryptophan, because it has to get taken into your brain, right? And there's carriers that take it into your transport systems that take it into your brain. So the other amino acid that goes in on that system is tyrosine. So if you overload it with tryptophan, your brain won't get enough tyrosine. Why is that important? Tyrosine is the precursor for dopamine and norepinephrine and epinephrine and melatonin. So these things are in balance. So this is not the case where if a little is good, a lot is better. A little could be good and a lot could be not a good idea.
Right.
So you need to do this with someone who knows how to do that. Right.
And also we'll get back to talk about serotonin in a minute, but if you're on any of the serotonin uptake SSRIs or the MAOIs, MAOIs,
right.
You don't want to take tryptophan or 5-HTP because it can cause serotonin syndrome.
Yeah. Ditto for St. John's wort, by the way.
Yes, correct.
Which is an herbal that people don't think about. That actually has a lot of potential side effects and a lot of potential interactions. Right.
Yeah. So what serotonin, Andrea brought it up, that's the happy, feel-good chemical. And when we're low in serotonin, our sleep is disrupted. We're angry. Our PMS is way worse. We have carb cravings. So there are some supplements like tryptophan or 5-HTP that if you're clear to take, may be able to help. Exercise also increases serotonin, but if you do too much, and I think, Bari, this is something you're very cognizant of, it can raise cortisol. And so those are the people who do exercise and afterwards they're totally wiped out. They just want to go take a nap as opposed to feeling better after they exercise.
Or you can be insensitive as I am, and even during the exercise, it can just, I tried a high intensity interval workout and my cortisol is already too high that trying to do a burpee just led to like, I'm about to pass out right now. Like, we're done here.
Right. Wow. And then finally, to help with serotonin, also sunshine, getting out in the sun, getting light therapy, that can also help boost somebody's serotonin. So want to mention that too. Okay, here's something that I didn't know about until I started, studying nutrition. Pyroluria. Okay, this is actually present in 11% of the healthy population. And it's a genetic condition where people are low in B6 and zinc because the body excretes it more than normal. And the problem is that if you're low in these, your serotonin is going to be low. And again, it will affect your sleep, it'll affect your mood. So you want to go ahead and make sure your B6 and zinc levels are sufficient. So I don't know if that's something they tested, Bari, when you did your blood work. B6 you can test through urine. Zinc, you actually do a zinc taste test, which I did when I was in school. You buy liquid zinc in some kind of holistic pharmacy, and you taste it on your tongue. And if you don't taste anything, that means you're low in zinc. Yeah. And as you continue to add zinc to your diet, you start to taste it more and more. And when it will get to a point where you can't tolerate, which means your body actually is getting enough zinc at that point. So a lot of people don't know about this. I didn't know about it, but B6 and zinc, this deficiency, is something that really is critical in making neurotransmitters like GABA. B6 can also be low because of diet, stress, digestion, birth control. A good way to know if your B6 levels are good is if you have good dream recall. So if you wake up, you remember your dreams were pleasant, they weren't nightmares, that indicates a healthy level of B6. Bari, do you remember your dreams? Do you have good dreams?
Oh God, do I remember my dreams? I don't even remember what happened yesterday.
Yeah, so that's an easy one. Good food sources of B6, we'll get to supplementation later, but high quality protein, carrot, spinach, broccoli, brown rice, quinoa, and walnuts. Zinc, the best source is oysters, which obviously we can't eat, but red meat, fish, chicken, pumpkin seeds are a great source of zinc. So, if you've done the testing and you might be low in those, it's easy to add lots of foods with B6 and zinc.
Is B6 also, is it just called B6 or is there another name for it?
It's pyroxidine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say about zinc is there's a number of studies. This is zinc supplementation, but that helps your body fight off upper respiratory infections like flus and colds
and COVID.
That hasn't come out yet, but hopefully it helps you fight that off. But it does help fight up the other upper respiratory system,
right? Yeah,
infections. So it helps your immune system. So then that could help decrease your inflammation level.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit more about vitamins and supplements. And I just want to stress that supplements are just that. They are supplementing a good diet. So it's not like people can go ahead and eat all the junk food they want and then take lots of vitamins and everything's going to be okay. They're really supplemental to a regular diet, but they're helpful sometimes because there are unmet nutritional needs and somebody sometimes might need to supplement. So taking a basic multi or a B vitamin complex, which helps with the adrenals. You can also find B vitamins in liver, meat, turkey, whole grains, bananas, and beans. Bari, did they look at your iron levels? Do you know when they tested you?
Yes. Thankfully, I am not anemic.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
That's one thing we can check off the list that I don't have to deal with.
And just to remind people, though, if they are vegan,
yes.
So although they're eating whole grains, bananas, and beans, they still need to take B12 as a supplement because it's not in. That's the one B vitamin that's only in animal protein.
Right. Yes. So yeah, B12 for sure. Because I was asking you about the iron because you need iron to make serotonin. So it sometimes is typical that if somebody is low in serotonin, their iron levels would be low as well. A mild to moderate deficiency of vitamin C is also associated with anxiety. So we can find those in oranges, peppers, strawberries, things like that. And vitamin C, everybody knows, is good just overall for supporting the immune system. Another good one is magnesium because that helps with the nervous system. Magnesium is known as the calming mineral. You can't eat too much because if you take too much magnesium, you're probably going to end up going to the bathroom a lot. So again, consult with somebody who can help you with dosing. But you can also get magnesium through taking a bath with Epsom salts.
Right.
So if you add some lavender essential oils and Epsom salts, it will be absorbed through the skin. So that's a very nice way to calm down at night. Food sources are dark green leafy vegetables, oats, quinoa, halibut, and those are also, some of those are good sources of calcium. We touched a little bit about the importance of eating fish, but fish oil has been studied and shown to alleviate depression. And L-theanine is found in tea. It's an amino acid and reduces your reaction to stress and has a calming effect. So, yes.
Yeah. What kind of tea?
What kind of teas? I would say caffeine-free teas, like chamomile. Would be
has L-theanine.
Has L-theanine. Okay. And then again, we were talking to Andrea about getting to the root issues. We talked about blood sugar. We talked about caffeine. We talked about sensitivity. We talked about amino acids. There are a couple of other things. Our exposure to toxins, either in the water we drink, the plastic, the parabens in personal care products, can all unfortunately affect our nervous system. So if we're doing it here and there, it's not a problem. It's more the toxic load. If we're getting a lot of it and our body can't handle it, that seems to be the problem. Heavy metals have also been shown to possibly be associated. So things like mercury in fish, lead in your paint, your water, your dental fillings. And then finally, we talked a little bit about the medication that you might prescribe. But if you watch TV and you see when they advertise medication, the millions of things and side effects that medication may cause.
Yeah. Well, but let me just put it out there too. Like when they do that on TV, a little bit of that is cover yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like if you people used to go in the physician's desk reference, which they didn't realize it's not really a medical document, it's a legal document. So anything that's ever been reported as a side effect or potential side effect is listed there. So it's almost like everything. You have to really look at the studies and see what were the common side effects and which ones were significantly above what people reported who were also taking placebo or not active medication.
Right. Yeah. But they can cause insomnia, restlessness, nervousness. So, so it's important to look at what other medications might be taking. Right. We spoke about adrenal fatigue. So like Bari, you were saying you have high cortisol. When you have adrenal fatigue, the chronic stress, what happens is that you overproduce cortisol. But unfortunately, eventually you're going to fatigue your adrenals, and then you're going to start producing too little cortisol. So that's something that I know you're working on and addressing and trying to get under control so that you can manage that and not become, what's that called when your adrenals really give out? Adrenal fatigue?
Addison's disease.
Addison's disease, right?
Yeah. I mean, we are, I'm working with a holistic doctor who is, encouraging me to take some supplements to try to curb the mass amount of cortisol production. At the same time, he recommended that I also see an endocrinologist because my blood work is so confusing that we just want to rule out that this is something that's not more critical before, which is great because I appreciate that there's somebody, in the holistic field who also understands, the value of Western medicine, which is kind of like you guys here. So that's nice. It's funny because a lot of people that you have on the show are people that I've, worked with personally or know personally. And it's great. I'm like, oh, that's my doctor. That's my whatever.
It is important to look at all of it. And you brought up also your blood work. I'm sure they looked at your thyroid as well, because that can affect your hormones, how your estrogen was, your progesterone, because all of that can, affect serotonin levels. So I'm sure that's something else that they're covering and looking at for you. Yeah, no, when I get blood work done, I get blood work done. Yeah. Like somebody, the last time I went and my doctor ordered, I don't know, I want to say 8 vials or whatever. And I was like, it's nothing. Right. When I had Lyme and we did a full workup, I had 20 vials. This is fine. That's a joke. And she just looked at me like, poor baby. Oh, no. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad. I appreciate the fact that we're looking at it overall and not just honing in and missing puzzle pieces. Right. That's what it is. It really, I feel like it's detective work that you really just have to keep on digging and trying. And it's a lot of work and it's hard. And I know, and I'm sorry. Yeah. Finally, I'm just going to leave things like exercise helps as long as you don't overdo it. Try and exercise outdoors. Sleep hygiene. So no phone before before your bath. You could take a bath, but no phone before bed. Sleep in a cool room. Try and relax, meditate. I'm glad to hear you're meditating.
Right.
Anytime somebody can get a massage, use essential oils, breath work, and of course, my favorite is laughter.
Right.
Always try.
My favorite's massage.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. So again, I just want to encourage anyone, like the advice that Andrea and I are giving, of course, please talk to your doctor. Please talk to somebody who is knowledgeable. And if you want to try, these things, I'm going to put some links to some of the people I referenced on the website with the episode. So Bari, before we say goodbye, anything else you want to add, comment?
Well, I'm really glad that I got my evaluation on this podcast. And
we'll send you the bill.
Yeah. But I appreciate learning from professionals and hearing the different perspectives, because throughout my journey, my health or lack thereof journey, there have been many schools of thought that I've seen, experienced, and I understand that sometimes, there's no one size fits all, and sometimes just the two schools of thought working together can, create massive change. So I appreciate that both of you are doing that on this podcast.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I think we should also mention that, you are very motivating yourself, because it's impressive, all the stuff that you do, which I don't think we even mentioned everything, right? And, and your attitude towards things, and being so open with us and sharing with all of your followers what you're going through and everything that you managed to accomplish in one day. Plus, you have 2 little kids. That's a whole job in itself.
That's right.
Well, yeah, they were home for like 4 days. They had the sniffles, and I'm like, please God, please God, please God, please God, like, let this go away. Because obviously you have a runny nose. They're not going to let you go to school due to the pandemic.
Right.
So today was the first day that they went back. Yeah. And I think my body just couldn't handle it. So that's why I'm a little under the weather today. Mm-hmm. It's like, you were full on parenting for 4 days. Shame on you. Like, you need to just recover. So like four herbal teas down, constantly hydrating. But it's also just a matter of figuring out what I can do, how I can do it, and if I can hack it to make it a little bit easier. So I think that's kind of like my secret, hacking and
knowing when to rest, and knowing when your body needs to recover and take a nap. And but I agree with Andrea. You're very inspiring. You do so much work, and so publicly, and really are very inspiring to a lot of women out there.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate those kind words. They help me encourage myself on the days where I don't feel that way about myself. So thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on, and thanks for coming on the Woman of Valor podcast.
Yeah,
I think,
our pleasure.
Part 1 and part 2 is just really great.
It's great. So anybody wants to check in with Bariana, she is at Bariana.com. Her Instagram is also at Bariana. She has a YouTube channel, Facebook. So lots of ways to connect with her and listen to the Women of Valor podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram at Let My People Eat. I want to thank our engineer, Mike Casantini, here at the Network Studios. We also have a Facebook group, so search for Let My People Eat on Facebook to join in the discussion. You can ask questions, suggest topics you would like to talk about in future episodes. Let My People Eat is also proud to be part of the Jewish Coffee House, where you can find your fill of stimulating podcasts dedicated exclusively to Jewish content. We're also available on the Naki Radio portal at nakiradio.com. All right, Bari. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Bari.
So much. Feel better. Go rest.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Oh, yeah. It's food and nap time after this.
Yeah.
I think that's my schedule for the rest of the day till the kids come home.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much.
All right. Bye. And that is it for this episode of Let My People Eat. Please visit our website at letmypeopleeat.com and leave us a comment. Get in touch at our email at podcast@letmypeopleeat.com or call us at 317-659-0004. Post on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook with the hashtag #LetMyPeopleEatPodcast. If you like this show, please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Tell your friends and family, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts.
And please remember that although we are certified professionals, this is not a medical advice podcast. No content, posts, or comments should be interpreted as professional guidance. Always speak to your own health practitioner about making the right life changes for you.
Until next time, I am Jill Scharfman.
And I am Andrea Moskowitz.
Thanks for joining us.
And go in good health.